What's up guys, and we are back to some Sly Cooper. Now a lot of you in the comments section kept asking me when I'd be returning to Sly Cooper videos. I guess that moment is today, so yeah, here we go. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed these Sly Cooper videos, I really appreciate it, thanks. Okay, I don't know if you've ever heard about this, guys. Well, maybe some of you have. It's called the Second Funniest Podcast. Well, that was the name before. Well, now it's called Gamerland Podcast. Well, to be a bit more precise, Gamerland Podcast is the website's name, and this website has a bunch of podcasts hosted by the voice actor of Sly Cooper, Kevin Miller, and comedian Justin Worsham. If you guys are bored or have some spare time, you should listen to one of these podcasts. They're pretty hilarious. So I'll just leave the website's link in the description so you guys can check it out later. With that being said, let's get right into it. Out of all these audio recordings, I took the time to listen to 3, which basically caught my attention. They have to do with Sly 4, Thieves in Time. I'm telling you from now, these podcasts are 3 years old, however they have some interesting stuff and I thought that you guys might like to hear about them a bit. And I haven't actually heard about this website until yesterday. This is pretty much new stuff for me, and probably for some of you guys as well. Out of 3 of these audio recordings, Matt Kraemer was in 2, and Matt Kraemer is the lead director of Sanzaru Games. He shared some pretty cool interesting stuff regarding Sly Thieves in Time, like what it felt like to make the game, how close they feel to the game, and ideas they came up with. Other very interesting stuff were mentioned as well. I'll go over them later on. Anyways, what is the current situation of Thieves in Time? What are the ratings? If we put like all the ratings together and come up with an average, I'd say the game has like 7.5 on 10, something like that. About this game, we have 2 groups of people. One group loves this game and the other one dislikes this game. Some people who disliked this game felt like the story was focused too much on Sly, meaning there wasn't enough gameplay for Murray and Bentley. However, I've enjoyed this game. I loved the story, the gameplay, the whole thing with the ancestors was pretty interesting. Like, I'd consider this one my favorite out of all the games in the series. The cartoony cutscenes were pretty spot on, however some people prefer the original. I don't know, I kind of preferred the new one and kind of gave us an idea of what an animated series could actually look like. And one major difference I've noticed between the new one and the old one is that in the new one, the characters felt a lot more animated. Another thing I want to mention, some people disliked the game because they disliked the story. They didn't really like the whole aspect of time traveling. And these people thought that Sanzaru ruined the game. Oh no, they added time travel, what is this? This isn't Sly Cooper. Anyways, there's one thing I want to say about that, guys. Kevin Miller, in one of these podcasts, explained that Sucker Punch actually had the whole idea of time travel. I mean, if you've played and finished Sly 3, Bentley in the end reveals that he's working on a time machine. So this tells us that if Sucker Punch produced Sly 4, then Sly 4 would still have time travel and visiting the ancestors and stuff like that. So if some of you thought that Sanzaru ruined the game with the whole time traveling thing, no. Sucker Punch initially had the idea of including time travel and visiting the ancestors. According to Kevin Miller, time traveling and visiting the ancestors was the next logical step in the story for Sucker Punch. So if Sucker Punch produced Sly 4, then the game, well, the story would be pretty much similar to Sanzaru's version. Since Sucker Punch moved on to Infamous, they didn't have the time nor the chance to work on the next story. Therefore, Sanzaru walked in and basically continued the series. Okay, I don't know if you've seen this video on YouTube. We have Sucker Punch mentioning Thieves in Time, that they actually liked the game. They said that Sanzaru Games did a pretty cool job.
It was absolutely spectacular.
So think about it, guys. Sanzaru basically took Sly 3 and continued the story. That's what I think, honestly. And after listening to these podcasts, you realize how much Matt Kraemer and Sanzaru really loves the Sly Cooper series. They take it to heart. Anyways, guys, let's just get to the interesting part, right? According to Matt Kraemer, Sly Cooper 4 Thieves in Time was supposed to have a horseshoe mode. Horseshoe mode was supposed to be a new game mode. Let's compare it to challenge mode in Ratchet & Clank. If you guys have played or tried Ratchet & Clank, challenge mode is unlocked once you complete the game. Challenge mode basically had the weapons you already purchased. Now for Sly Cooper 4, horseshoe mode would have Sly, without the health bar, and basically that gameplay would resemble Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus style of gameplay, using horseshoes as health. Now this feature was removed due to time constraints. Now what does this tell us, guys? Sanzaru was actually planning on adding some aspects of the first game and implement them into Sly 4. Now this further explains that Sanzaru actually loves this series. They take the series to heart. I mean, they were planning on adding stuff from the original into Sly 4. 1. Not only the new game would attract a new audience, but two, at the same time, it would attract old fans with the new game mode. Unfortunately, since the game mode wasn't included, well, I don't know, what can I say? Could we have gotten like a boost in ratings maybe if that feature was included? Who knows? Well, this is all stuff from the past, so we can't change anything. Matt Kraemer also mentioned that if they had an extra 2 years to produce the game, they maybe could have added co-op or a multiplayer mode. Now, I don't mind multiplayer and co-op in Sly Cooper especially, but maybe it could have also boosted the ratings or stuff like that. But still, it could have been pretty fun, right? What else? Alright, now have you guys ever wondered what would happen to Sly if he were to meet his parents? Since time travel was introduced, maybe Sly could have met his parents somehow, right? Now I'm gonna leave that whole Sly visiting his parents for another video. Alright guys? Anyways, about that, Matt Kraemer explained that they didn't want to touch that subject in Sly 4. Now who's to say they won't touch that subject in the future? Maybe in Sly 5 or Sly 6? I don't know. Anyways, so far, news for Sly 5 are very dry. I don't even know what's going on. But if we eventually do get a Sly 5, maybe Sly's parents might get implemented somehow. A lot of you probably already know what would happen to Sly if he actually met his parents in the past. Anyways, let's leave the suspense for another video. Alright, moving on. Matt Kraemer also talked about the Easter eggs. The clockwork Easter eggs. If you've played Sly 4, you can notice clockwork. Now a lot of you think that Easter egg had nothing to do with the story. However, Sanzaru knows that clockwork has a huge backstory, and that's the reason why they added clockwork in. The company knows that this bird has a huge backstory. Are they planning on explaining some of that backstory? It would be interesting, right guys? Clockwork is one very mysterious character. I'd love to have a backstory explaining what actually caused all of this anger and hate towards the Coopers. Okay, now let's talk about something else. Now before all of you guys go like, nope, we don't need this, all aboard the nope train, just keep in mind that this was only discussed. It doesn't mean that this will apply to the future of the series. Now what am I saying exactly? During the podcast, Kraemer kind of talked about episodic content. I'm not saying they want to go towards episodic content, they just talked about it. They were like, some new games are starting to get episodic content and stuff like that. They kind of discussed about it and gave their opinions on it. And this has to do before the production of Sly 4. Since Sly 4 is all about visiting ancestors, they kind of wondered what Sly Cooper 4 would have been like with episodic content. Like, let's say you had to wait like a couple of weeks for a new episode. That new episode would feature a new ancestor. Yes, this idea was mentioned, but Kraemer said that he's not such a huge fan of this kind of stuff. He explained that once someone buys the game and finishes all the available episodes, then the player might perhaps move away from the series, especially when you have to wait a couple of weeks for a new episode. And I mean, that's not a good idea, right? If you have to wait for episodes, then chances are that you might lose interest with the game and just simply move on and forget about it. And since Sly Cooper introduced time travel and visiting a bunch of ancestors, having episodes for new ancestors kind of sounds, I don't know, a bad idea. I mean, I personally would hate to play a Sly game and wait for new episodes. Nope. And I'm sure a lot of you agree with this. I'm actually gonna say something else about that later on, just wait. Let's go back to the reviews. Some people disliked the game since the final boss kind of felt too easy. The boss basically involved a sequence of button pressing, and people felt like it was too easy and boring. Now what's actually interesting about this is that Kraemer said, if I were to go back in time, I would completely change that. Kraemer initially had the idea of implementing all the ancestors and outfits into the final boss, where the final boss would require a bunch of stages. Now this was probably due to time constraints, but still, having the ancestors and the outfits in the final boss would have been crazy in a good way. But still guys, hating a game just because of a final boss, it's kind of being nitpicky, right? Although I felt the boss was kind of easy, I still liked the game. The fact that Kraemer himself said that he would go back and change everything just means that he would add a bunch of crazy ideas in future sequels, don't you think? Alright, let's compare Thieves in Time with the previous games. Compared to the previous games, the story in 4 felt a lot more, I don't want to say complicated, but kind of new. I'm gonna go with new. The previous games felt more like, okay, let's save the day and get rid of criminals and steal from criminals. However, the 4th game involved the Cooper legacy. The story was about keeping the Cooper legacy intact. and I really enjoyed meeting all the Coopers. It was something different, it was something new to the series. It's like how Ratchet & Clank fans really adored A Crack in Time, or the Future trilogy overall. The whole thing with the Lombaxes, the Great Clock, Ratchet's parents were introduced. Well, not in person, but story-wise. They were mentioned. And it was a nice twist to the story. And this is called, let's say, being original. I mean, if games become too repetitive, then fans might wonder why they're getting tired of the same game and the same plot. And this applies for Sly Cooper for Thieves in Time. I really liked how they introduced this new plot element, time traveling, discarding the Cooper legacy and stuff like that. And yes, despite the loading times and technical difficulties, I really enjoyed Sly Cooper 4. And this was actually discussed during the podcast. Kraemer was like, at a point, you can't make a game too repetitive. You want to add something new without changing the game too much. And that's what Sanzaru did with Sly 4. They kept the same elements, collectibles, clue bottles, treasures, masks, but at the same time they added something new, a brand new nice fresh storyline. With that being said, let's move on to the biggest disappointment I heard during the podcast. According to Kevin Miller, there wasn't supposed to be a cliffhanger in Sly 4. There was supposed to be a gameplay in ancient Egypt where Sly would meet Sly Tutankhamun, and due to the PS Vita's limitations, they cut that out. And they left a terrific cliffhanger. How nice. So you're telling me we were supposed to meet Sly Tutankhamun. Due to the PS Vita's size limits, they cut that whole thing out. Oh wow, what a disappointment. What a bummer. But still, there's one big advantage to this whole situation. Sly Cooper 5. And guess what? Sly Cooper 5 still remains in the desert, lost somewhere, trying to look for water. Well, Sly basically, right? Okay, let's go back to the episodic thing. Okay, no, I'm not saying we need episodic content. I'm just saying that what if Sanzaru in the future decides to make like a DLC kind of thing, where they finally put an end to the story, and this DLC would basically be an episode in ancient Egypt, where Sly would meet Sly Tutankhamun, and put an end to the story. We need a proper ending, right? Well, wouldn't we technically need a PS4 title to get this DLC? If not a DLC, perhaps they might work on a short game, which takes place in ancient Egypt with Sly Tutankhamun? Maybe. But still, Sly 5 would be a lot better, right? After the movie gets released, Kevin Monroe be like, anyways, once the movie gets released, maybe that might spark something. Who knows, maybe we might get Sly 5 or a reimagining just like Ratchet & Clank. Only time will tell, guys. What can I say? Alright, before I end this video, I just want to mention something. During the podcast, Kraemer talked about a collector's edition. Now, Sly 4 didn't receive a collector's edition, but what if in the future, with the Sly Cooper movie and the whole thing, what if we get a collector's edition for Sly Cooper 5? It would be kind of great. However, a collector's edition has to do with the publisher. The developers don't deal with that kind of stuff. So, I don't know, what would you think about a collector's edition? I know, some people might say this game is way too underrated and Sony might decline. But still, it's a good marketing strategy in some way, right? So I guess this whole thing with Sly Cooper 5, a collector's edition, might perhaps turn into reality once the Sly Cooper movie comes out and gains success, I guess. So, if you've watched the whole video, guys, you're awesome. Thank you very much. And one last thing. Guys, the channel has reached more than 2,000 subscribers. I don't even know how to explain this overwhelming feeling, guys. Thank you very much. I never imagined my channel reaching such number. This just tells me that 2,000 people liked my content enough to subscribe. And that's pretty crazy. Thank you very much, I really appreciate it. And hopefully this channel might expand even more in the future. I'm looking forward to it. Anyways guys, thank you for watching. I've been Vivi, and thank you very much. Until next time.